Well, hey, good evening, everyone. Thanks so much for being here tonight at our Connect groups. My name is Dominic Insenius. I'm the leader here at the Heart. And tonight we have a chance to dig into some questions that are based around the message that we had on Sunday morning. Now, what we like to say around here is that you don't have to go to church here to go to church here. So if you didn't go to church or haven't listened to the podcast or anything like that, it doesn't mean you can't be a part of the conversation. It's all about just talking through our faith and allowing our faith to grow in that way. And we believe that our faith grows best in these groups. In fact, our mission and vision at the Heart is to connect people to the heart of God, and we think that best happens in these groups. So this past weekend, we started a brand new series called The Not So Old Testament. And what we want to do is take a few weeks looking at the Old Testament and trying to understand that there are people living in maybe an ancient time in an ancient culture, speaking an ancient language, but dealing with not so ancient human conditions. People who are struggling with their faith, who are trying to understand God in deeper ways, who are trying to work through their feelings of connecting with a God that they couldn't always see or touch or feel. So this first Sunday, what we looked at is a couple of the Psalms. And I don't know how often you read Psalms, but we're going to look at a few, and they're going to be up on the screen here in a little bit. I think we were in Psalm 38, 65, and I think 34. So like I said, they'll be up here. We'll be able to read through them if you'd like. But in these, what we see is someone who had a relationship with God. His name was David, and it's the famous David, if you know a little bit about the Bible, the one who fought Goliath. And he was someone who wrote poems, and he wrote psalms, wrote songs. And what we get to see is an insight on how he felt about God, what he was dealing with in God. And David, what makes David so special, in my opinion, is how honest he was with God when he would come to God in prayer. And that's what these songs and poems are. They're written out prayers to God. And so what I want to do is read through these, and I want us to see the honesty in David's heart and appreciate the honesty that he brings to God, because David, he did a lot of things in his life that he wouldn't have been proud of. He wouldn't have been proud for us to read these things that he had done. But David remained special in the eyes of God, and remained special because he always brought his honest, vulnerable self to God. And I believe that's where our faith can grow, is when we are honest with God and honest with ourselves. So this first question tonight, what I want you guys to maybe talk through is, maybe think about in your life when someone you know, maybe someone close to you or a family member, whatever it is, when they were honest with you. When someone was completely vulnerable with you, maybe they were sharing something they were going through or whatever it happens to be, they were completely honest with you. And I want you to talk about that time and how that affected your relationship with that person. How did their vulnerability affect you? So let's talk through that for a minute and see what you guys think there. All right, now if you guys haven't read the Psalms yet, I want you to go ahead and take a chance to do that before we answer this next question, because in this question, what I want to do is look at the different ways that this psalmist, that this person writing this, had these different views of God. In one psalm, God is this incredible mountain-making God that answers prayers mightily and displays his power through answering his prayers. And in this other psalm, God is someone to be afraid of, we need to pray that God wouldn't strike us down because of our sin, because of our guilt, because of his anger with us. And what I want to know from you in this question is, have you ever felt that way? Have you ever felt two different ways about your relationship with God, or maybe what you thought God was like, and they were maybe two opposite ways, and maybe how that affected your faith? I think what I really want to do with this question is explore the different feelings that we have about God. And I find that it's only okay to talk about God when you're talking about how great God is, but we always hush each other when we're dealing through a hard time and we're not understanding God. So what I want to do is talk through that and wonder, when have you felt these two different opposite ways about God, and how that has affected your faith and where it is today? So let's take some time to talk through that. All right, now for this third question, I want us to dig into this because I feel like this is going to tap into some raw emotions that the author of this particular psalm had. So if you haven't read it yet, Psalm 38 verses 1 through 4, I want you to read through this. And what we find here is that this person writing this, they were overwhelmed by their guilt, overwhelmed by their shame, by what they call their sin, something, maybe a mistake they had made. And and it paints this picture of they're afraid of God. And what I want to know from you is, have you ever felt the way this particular psalmist is describing their feelings? Have you ever felt overwhelmed by your guilt? Have you ever felt by shame? And when was a time where you felt overwhelmed by that? And more importantly, not when did you feel shame, because we all feel shame at different parts in our life, but does it change anything for you? Knowing that this man David, this what we call a hero of the faith, someone who killed Goliath and he saved God's people, did all these amazing things. Does it change anything for you knowing that this hero of the faith felt this way? Not only did he feel this way, it's written in the Bible that someone who was shown to be a hero of the faith felt this way. Does that change anything for you when you have felt this way? So let's take a few minutes to dig into that, and I'd love to hear what you guys think. All right, now for our last question tonight, it's all about taking what we're learning, what we're trying to understand, and taking it into the week with us, taking it into the rest of our life. And what I want us to really pull from this particular message and what this psalmist is showing us is the honesty and the vulnerability that he is bringing. So what I want to know from you is, this week, how can you be honest with yourself on where you are in your life? Maybe honest with yourself in your anxiety or depression or the state of your relationships or your stress level or your frustration or whatever it happens to be. How will you be honest with yourself this week? And I want to challenge you. How will you be honest with yourself this week and bring that honesty to God through prayer? I think it's in when we pray that we're able to communicate with God, and when we're honest with our prayers. If we can start being honest with ourselves and being honest in our prayers, that is when we build strong connections with God. So how this week, how will you choose to do that? To challenge yourself, to be honest with yourself, and to bring that honesty to God in prayer. So let's take a few minutes to talk through that. This is the last question for tonight. So I want to tell you guys that I love you very much. I hope you have a great rest of your week, and we'll see you this Sunday at 9:30 and 11, where we dig further into the not so Old Testament. All right, you guys have a great week.